how do I even go about establishing any sense in any narrative at this point in the political discourse? Since this is what you do, you bleed sense back, inject sense back into a series of sporadic facts that make no sense nowhere else. Like if you go to Twitter, it's a shit show, man.
Yeah.
There is just Congress, ABVP, JNS, सब कुछ वहीं पे, everything's happening at the same time. How do you go about making sense? How do I make sense that this is how I should be looking at things? Who do I discredit? Who do I credit? It's such a mess.
I think it is, first of all, I think it's important to identify yourself, not in terms of left, right, or all that, but on your own terms. What are your interests? Who do you see? Resolve your identity crisis to some extent, right? And to have a fair bit of understanding of where you stand in this whole scheme. And then you get a firm grounding of judging what works for you, what is against you. You're not that universal individual that has absolute neutrality by some divine miracle.
Right.
You have interests, you have your own agendas, and therefore, according to that, you may call it partisan, but it's not exactly partisan. It's having a skin in the game. That you are saying something and you are participating in the political discourse and the cultural discourse with some sense of responsibility, because things benefit you and things hurt you.
So it is like, and I don't know if I was speaking to you about it or somebody else. I think it was you, where I was saying how the personal is the political, in the extension that your personal biases, your very, very, very personal motivations bleed out into your political choice. So the right wing sort of aims towards this certainty, and there is a cuckolding hypothesis behind why people are conservative in the evolutionary ends, but also because when there is no, let's just say, meaningful attribution to your cognition on an everyday level, you automatically are tempted to attach it to some sort of self-loathe, because that becomes an immediate proximal point of reference that I can work on forever. No change expectation. So I hate India and I can hate India forever. Yeah. Or I hate the United States and I can hate it forever, because it'll never be good enough, right? But it is your argument about sort yourself out before you go out into the world is very similar to Peterson's idea of, clean up your room.
Oh yes, absolutely.
Right?
I hadn't thought about it.
Right.
Yeah,
it appeared to me that it's super similar to Peterson's clean your room before you go to set out to change the world. Yeah. But then Peterson and Zizek, when they were arguing, and I don't know if you're privy to that debate, it was very, very everywhere up in gaseous. It was very, very gaseous. There was one point of coherence where Zizek brings it up and he says, I get your point. I get where you're coming from. Sort your room before you go to set out the world. But it is also that your room is sorted in reference to the world. So how can I fix my identity crises in a place where my friends are not willing to accept me as homosexual, right? And that is an instance of how part of sorting yourself out has to do with the political. And that's Arendt's idea of person and political, I think.
Okay.
So how do you do that?
I think that's the trouble with intellectualism. Because ultimately, everything is getting politicized. Even your own identity, like you just said. I come from a traditional school of thought. And I believe that for a Hindu, it is not politics which determines your inner identity. It is your inner identity that defines politics. And it is your responsibility to first sort out that mess, not necessarily by only intellectualizing and debating, but maybe also through some religious or spiritual practices, and get some degree of sthirta, stability,
right,
in your inner life before you evaluate things on the outside. So that is not necessarily having conceptual clarity, but having control. Swami, the word comes from
Swami.
Yeah.
Right.
So being in control of yourself.
Right. The owner of yourself.
So that's a deeper aspiration to have than just intellectual clarity. I think intellectual clarity is a byproduct of living in a certain way, so that you may gain that sort of insight into life and the universe in general.